Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Howie Heckman. I'm one of the developers here at PTS. Today, I'll be giving you kind of a getting started with webinar and ClearStream and how quickly you can get up and running with fixed RFID and hook that into a pre-existing system. So we'll have a live demonstration of the product to show you exactly how you'd kind of get set up, run through the application, add an actual fixed RFID reader to a database, and show you how easily you can read tags into that database. I would like to also mention that at the end of the webinar today, we'll have a question and answer period. So as I'm going through anything, if you have any questions as I go along, just feel free to type them over in your question panel of the GoToMeeting toolbar there. So just to note, we'll have that at the end. Also, I will be giving a live demonstration of the software, and all of the software is actually available from our ClearStreamRFID.com website. So if you go there, you can click on the free trial link, and you can download the software that I'll be showing you today and actually follow along and do everything that I'm configuring here. It's available as a free trial from our website. It just really allows you to use the software with all of its features for a period of 30 days. So you can trial everything that I show you. There's no restrictions to the software other than that 30-day period. So you can go ahead and trial everything. We will be recording this webinar, so if you would like to refer back to it later at a later date, maybe as you go through and test any of the software through the free trial, you can kind of follow along with what I have to say here. We'll be posting that to our website, as well as we do have plenty of online resources for getting started with ClearStream. We have a knowledge base forum, as well as a pretty extensive list of videos on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to check that out to see any of the other even further, more advanced features of ClearStream than I'll be getting into today, you can go ahead and take a look at our ClearStream RFID YouTube channel. So it's always a good spot to take a look at the different features of the software. So with that, I just like to usually mention the Getting Started with webinar. For those of you who are not familiar with ClearStream RFID, I'd like to just kind of describe a little bit about what it is before jumping into the live demonstration. So ClearStream RFID, it's kind of a mapping tool. It allows you to map fixed RFID readers into a pre-existing system. There's no programming involved in ClearStream. It's all point and click. Selecting your reader, selecting where you want to send the tag information, and then really configuring how and when the readers are scanning for tags. It allows you to hook up those fixed readers to any pre-existing database where an ODBC driver is available. So it could be something like Microsoft Access. There's actually a sample Access database that's provided with the installer that I'm going to be using today that you can test with, or if you had something like a MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle database, anything like that, you can hook ClearStream RFID up to that database and really map a fixed RFID reader right into that database. It's really the routing tool for all of your tag information, controls the readers, and sends all of that information into where you'd like to send the tag information that's scanned by the readers. We also support Microsoft Excel workbooks as well as text files. So those are selectable destinations of your tag data as well. So those can be used to collect tag information from your fixed reader. We usually recommend, if you have an ODBC database available, that's usually the best route, especially for multiple readers. But those are the different options you have for sending, or where you'd like to send the tag information that's being read by all of the fixed readers in your environment. So what we'd like to say about ClearStream is it's the quickest fixed RFID solution available. It really allows you to test fixed RFID, even if you have very minimal experience using fixed RFID or even mobile RFID. The tool really allows you to get up and running quickly. So you can validate that the tags will work in your environment. Because one thing you'll see when using RFID is that really environmental factors, tag sizes, reader power levels, they'll have a big impact on the performance you'll get of scanning tags. And if you're going the route of, say, a custom solution, you're programming for a fixed RFID environment and you're customizing where you're sending that tag information, it'll take a lot of effort to get up and running to the point where you can actually test the performance of scanning tags. ClearStream kind of eliminates that. It allows you to hook up the reader to your database and almost within a matter of minutes, see that tag information streaming into your database. And then you can test how well the tags are being scanned in your environment. Test the portal, like you see the picture here on this PowerPoint. Test the portal to make sure everything on that palette is being scanned and correctly sent to your database. So there's really minimal investment up front. I mean, even the trial mode that you get from our website allows you to test the software, see how everything works, to make sure that it's going to work for the environment and the items that you're looking to tag. And it really, because it's configurable, we've seen it being used in a lot of different tracking type applications. So real-time work in process tracking, tracking an item as it's going from workstation to workstation, maybe as it's being manufactured, document type tracking where you're tracking a document from desk to desk or something like that. Shipping and receiving, like the picture there, rolling a pallet through a portal, capturing all of the tags, stockroom inventories, keeping track of items in a stock cabinet. Oftentimes we've seen those metal cabinets as a good solution for almost like a smart shelf where you can scan everything inside of it. If anything leaves that cabinet, it can be recorded and sent to your database. So really a lot of different applications you can set up with ClearStream RFID. And again, it doesn't require that custom programming that you typically see with fixed RFID. There's no developing an application that suits a certain purpose. It's really all configuration, so you can set it up as you need to into the backend system that you're going to be using in your environment. Maybe you already have an asset tracking solution. You want to hook up fixed RFID readers to it. You can do that with ClearStream. Or maybe you have some type of inventory system already in place. It's built on Microsoft SQL Server. You can now hook up fixed RFID using ClearStream and start reading tags into that database, kind of leveraging some existing RFID technology into your existing system. So really, what are the steps in getting up and running with fixed RFID? Now, I'll show you these live in just a minute here, but I just kind of wanted to illustrate what you do to really get up and running and at least even testing fixed RFID. And the typical process is, if we support the reader, and I'll show you the different manufacturers that we support in just a minute, you just really connect your reader to your network. So the readers that we support all communicate over an Ethernet interface. So you just plug in an Ethernet cable on your network, power up the reader, just make sure it's hooked up and correctly connected to your reader. The next thing you would do is just download and install ClearStream RFID from our website at ClearStreamRFID.com, and you can go ahead and start configuring the software. Now, one of the features that we offer to simplify the installation even more is a find feature. You press the find feature, it'll actually scan your network for fixed RFID readers, so you don't even need to know the IP address of the reader. It will find the readers on your network. When it finds them, you just select them in your configuration and then select the destination of where you want to send any tag that reader happens to scan and where you want it to post that tag information. Once you have that configuration ready, you basically just go to the start-stop form and start up the readers. It'll power up all of the readers that you've configured, and any tag that's being scanned by these readers will be posted to your database table, and you can see that data flowing into your system. So those are the steps in getting up and running with ClearStream. And now I'll kind of walk you through that process a little bit here, just to illustrate it a little bit more and show you some of the other features of ClearStream, so, to show you how you can get up and running with everything. So with that, we'll jump into a live demo. So I'm just going to hop out of the PowerPoint here and bring you over to ClearStream, the actual application. So this here is the home screen of ClearStream, the home configuration screen, I guess I should say. This is where you're going to configure a reader and hook it up to a database. Now, this is what you'll see almost exactly here after an install of ClearStream. It's somewhat pre-configured to get you up and running. And what you'll notice here on the right-hand side, it says destination. And it says ODBC ClearStream RFID sample database into the RFID tag list table. Now, this will be pre-configured after installation, and it's the sample access database that's provided with the installer. And you can actually find that here. So I have in my setup this Microsoft Access ClearStream sample database with an RFID tag list table, and this is pre-built from the installer. So it really just has a number of fields, the EPC, a tag identifier field, antenna, date time, and so on. But it's just a pre-built table with a couple of fields that we're going to populate with the data coming from the fixed RFID reader. So for anyone that's actually testing the software, you can go ahead and use this database if you don't already have something in place, or if you just wanted to get up and running quickly, because it is somewhat pre-configured. So you can see right now here, there's no tags in my database. It's an empty database table. So what I want to do is hook up a reader to that table. So I'm going to come back to the configuration dialog here, really I only need to configure one thing, and that's the reader that I want to use. So you can see on my source side, it's set to RFID. Destination side is set again to this ODBC data table. And down below, I have field mappings. The fields on the left are the fields collected by the fixed RFID reader, and the fields on the right are those fields that are in that Microsoft Access table. So I have those married up. So anytime a tag is scanned, the EPC, which is kind of the unique identifier for that tag, is posted to the EPC field in the Microsoft Access table. But the last thing I really need to do is add that reader. So what I'm going to do is click on this readers button here, and it's going to bring up the reader configuration dialog. Now this dialog here is simply used to add the readers that you have in your environment to your configuration. So if you had 10 readers in here, you would go ahead and add those 10 readers to this configuration, and all of those readers would then be available to you as sources of the tag data. So in the background, you saw that source tab. That's a source for the tag data, which is a fixed RFID reader. So to add a reader, you simply hit this add button here, and a little pop-up will come up here that allows you to select the manufacturer you'd like to use as your fixed RFID reader. Now you can see here there's a number of different manufacturers that we support: Zebra/Motorola readers, Intermec, Impinj, Alien RFID readers, ThingMagic, as well as FIG. And we also have an emulated option for kind of simulating a little bit of the tag data. Now the first option here is LLRP. That's low-level reader protocol. That's kind of an industry standard for communication with fixed RFID readers. So if you don't see your manufacturer listed here, and you have some other manufacturer, one thing you can do is check the specs on the reader. Oftentimes it will support LLRP, and if so, you can go ahead and just select LLRP, and you can use that reader as your source of tags, or the reader that's scanning for your tags in your environment. If you don't see LLRP in the specs, you can just try it and just see if it works with your reader. Sometimes a reader will have that LLRP capability, and maybe it's not obvious as to where to find whether or not it's actually supported. So if you don't see your manufacturer in that list, you can go ahead and try the LLRP option to see if it works with your reader. Okay, but basically you just pick the manufacturer that you'd like to use. For the demo today, I'm going to select this FIG option. It's a new manufacturer that we support in version 4.1 of the ClearStream software. And you can see now it has added a new entry into my reader list. It's called Fixed RFID Reader 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and just configure a couple of things about this. First, I want to change the name of this reader. Let's say we have this reader as it's a stockroom, let's call it Warehouse 1 reader. So I really just name it appropriately to where I have it located. Now I have this reader sitting right next to me here, but if you were configuring this in your environment, you would name it based on really where the reader is located, because this reader name will be captured along with all of the tag information in your database. So anytime a tag is scanned, you'll see that it was scanned by the Warehouse 1 reader. So you get kind of a location of that tag within the facility. So I'm going to go ahead and name it there. The next thing I really need to do is just set the IP address or host name of the reader. Now here's where I mentioned that find button. If you don't know the IP address or host name of the reader, you can actually just click find here, and that'll search your network for the fixed RFID reader. And if it finds it, you can then go ahead and just select it as that. You don't need to know the IP address or host name. For the demo today, I happen to know the IP address. I'm going to go ahead and key that in. Once you do that, you'll see the reader ID populate. That means it actually has successfully communicated with the reader and connected to it to retrieve its reader ID. So you'll see that pop up here. So that's kind of a way you'll notice that the communication has been successful between ClearStream and that fixed RFID reader. Okay, so I have that configured. I have a new reader in my list. The only other thing maybe I want to do for the demo before I get started is actually configure one antenna to this reader, and I'm going to name this Stockroom 100. So this, and I'll bump the power down on this reader. So now I'm also naming the antenna. Now I have one antenna hooked up to this reader here. This reader is a FIG MRU device, but I have one antenna hooked up to it. So I'm going to give that antenna a name as well, so Stockroom 100. Now, many readers support many antennas, 2, 4, 8, sometimes more antennas. So in ClearStream, you can name those antennas. So you can use them as indicating a location as well. So let's say you had two stockrooms right next to each other. You had a single reader and two antennas that went to each stockroom. You could then take the inventory of those two stockrooms, and based on the antenna that scans the tag, you know where that item is in stockroom 1 or stockroom 2. So I only have one antenna hooked up to this reader for the demo, but I'm going to go ahead and name it stockroom 100 just so you can see that information captured and sent to the database. But other than that, that's all I'm going to configure for now. I really just named the reader and named the antenna that's hooked up to it, and then entered the IP address. So I'm going to close this dialog. And when you do that, what you'll notice is that now on my source side, I have one fixed RFID reader here, this warehouse 1. So I'm going to use that as my source of tag data. So if you look at this configuration, you can see what I just did. I hooked up my warehouse 1 reader as the source to a destination of the RFID tag list, and it's set to append tags to this table. So it's a very simple setup. I have a fixed RFID reader hooked up to a database table. And as you can see, that database table is currently empty. There's no tags in this database table here. So I'm going to go ahead and save my project, and I'm going to actually start this reader up. So to do that, I'm just going to jump over to the Start Stop dialog. You can see my one reader in my environment here. If I had a whole bunch of readers, you'd see each one of them in the configuration. I'm going to start this reader up. So that you can see now it's running true, and there's an inventory in progress. So it's currently scanning tags. Now I'm going to I have a handful of tags here, actually six unique tags. And what I'm going to do is take these tags and move them past the antenna. I'll hold them there for a second. And now down below, when this thing starts scanning tags, you're going to see the activity that's happening. So I'm going to take these tags and I'm moving them over the reader. And you can see this now, the tags are going up. Now I'm holding the tags over that. Now I'm going to go back, I'm moving the tags away from the antenna. So you guys can't see this, but basically all I'm doing is taking my RFID tags and moving them inside of the field of view of the antenna so that the reader is actively scanning those tags. And as it was doing that, you can see the activity of the reader. It just sent 76 tags to the destination. And again, that destination is the Microsoft Access database table that we provided. So I'm going to slide that back over here, and I'm just going to hit F5 to refresh it. And what you'll see is now I have 76 records in my database. So I have 76 tags that were scanned at stockroom 100 in warehouse 1, along with date timestamps of when they're scanned. Now, this was a very, very simple setup. I basically just hooked that reader up to a destination and said, go ahead and start scanning tags. And I only had 6 tags, but what you'll notice is there's more than six tags here. There's 76, and there's a whole bunch of duplicates. And the reason being is I didn't really configure much about this reader other than to say, send me these tags every time they're scanned to the destination. So even though I was just holding those tags there, it's continually scanning them because it's in front of the antenna, and it's sending all of those that tag data to the database. So I got duplicates in this case. So it isn't maybe the most useful. There might be a use case for this, but it isn't the most useful because you have a whole bunch of duplicates of, say, the same tags. Like I can see, for instance, here's the 7 tag followed a couple entries later by the same tag, and it was basically scanned at the same time because it's scanning this tag over and over again at 12:20:31. So it's scanning that tag as it's sitting in front of the reader. So that's the most basic setup of ClearStream. It's just reading tags from the reader as they pass the antenna and posting them to the database. But ClearStream gives you a lot of flexibility now in controlling that data that's going to be sent to the database table. So let's go ahead and try to limit this. We don't want to, as tags are sitting in front of an antenna, to be just scanned over and over again and posted to the database. Let's control it a little bit so that it's based on activity. Maybe we only want to scan these tags when they come in front of the antenna, and we don't want to scan them again until maybe they go away and come back. So you're keeping track of that activity at the reader based on the movement of these items that you're scanning. So I'm going to go ahead and I cleared my database out. There's no more records in here. I'm going to power the reader down. I'm going to hit reset so this number goes back to 0. And now my reader is back off. My tag sent to the destination is back to 0. And let's make a couple configuration changes just to illustrate to you guys how you can configure this for your own environment and how you need to use it. So let's say we want to keep track of how long an item happens to be at a workstation. So I have one antenna here, and I have 6 tags. So I'm going to go ahead and keep track of those 6 tags for how long they're in front of that antenna. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to jump over back to the configure dialog. I'm going to go back to my reader configuration. and I have my single reader configured here. And the one area I want to jump into is the tag settings. Now, I think for most installations, you're going to want to play with these tag settings here to adjust them for what you're trying to set up. So the thing I want to turn on is this moderate tag read. And it's based around this timeout time. I'm going to put a timeout time of 5 seconds. This timeout is really telling the reader, remember this tag for 5 seconds after it's scanned, so we can do certain things with it. So if a tag comes in front of an antenna, the reader is going to scan that tag. And because of this timeout time here, it's going to keep track, it's going to remember that tag for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, it's no longer going to remember it, and you can do things with that. So what I'm going to do is, by default, we have report tag visible turned on. And that really means just tell me about the tag when it's visible, when it comes in front of the antenna. Now, let's say we also want to report when it goes away from the antenna. So to do that, I'm going to say report tag no longer visible. Basically saying, tell the database that a tag just left the area. So I'm going to turn that on. The last option I also want to turn on is report tag again only after not visible. And basically what this means is, don't tell me about the tag again unless it goes away and comes back. So the time that it's sitting in front of that antenna, it's only going to be scanned once until it goes away for 5 seconds and comes back. So let's go ahead and try this just to show you the difference now in this setup. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to hit save my project, go back to start stop. I'm going to power up my reader. The reader has started. Now I'm going to take my 6 tags here. And again, you guys can't see this, but I'm going to take my 6 tags and I'm going to walk them or move them in front of the antenna into the workstation. So imagine I have something I'm manufacturing. I have a couple of RFID tags on it, and I want to keep track of how long these tags are, again, at this workstation. So I'm going to move them over into the antenna here, and now they're all 6 have been scanned. And I'm currently holding these tags over that fixed RFID reader. They're just sitting there. I have my hand over it. The 6 tags are sitting there. I'm just going to keep waiting just so you can kind of see the difference here. So these tags are still actually being scanned by this reader, but because I have that moderation turned on, I'm only sending those tags the 6 times, the first 6 times they were scanned. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these tags away. So I'm actually taking my hand, I'm pulling these 6 tags away from that reader. And in about 5 seconds, what you'll see is those 6 tags are now going to go up to 12. You can see it just went to 12 there. Because now it's reporting, I told it to report to me when the tags are no longer visible. So if I go over to my database and hit F5 to refresh it, I have 12 entries in the database, and the first 6, what you'll see is in the tag event, it says new tag visible. And then the second 6 are tag no longer visible, along with their date timestamps. So 12/25/46 and 47 when they first showed up, and 12/26/22 when I pulled my hand away and left the view of that antenna. So that antenna is still scanning for tags, but there's no longer any tags in front of it, so it's not recording. So let's just do that again one more time so you can see. I'm going to take my same 6 tags. I'm going to go ahead and again take these 6 tags, put them over the antenna. You can see now they immediately went up to 18 tags. I'm still holding that. And if I can use my other hand here, I'm going to go here and refresh my database. And right now you can see there's 18 entries in the database. And you can see there's new tag visible, tag no longer visible, and I have another 6 entries for tag visible. If I move this back out of the way, I'm going to move my tags away at this point, and that will go up now to another 6. After that 5 seconds, it looks like I might have wobbled out of the view there, but you can see it went up another 6. I'm going to hit F5, and I have 26 entries in here of tag, new tag visible, new tag visible. There's a little bit of me moving out of this because I have this as a low power right now. But you can see then the tags are no longer visible when I finally move them all the way away. So you can see it's keeping track of those tags for the length of time that they're at the workstation. And I'm getting entries in the database for that. New tag visible, tag no longer visible. Let me go back to the setup, and I want to kind of show you guys some more setup in ClearStream just to show you some more of the flexibility and things you can do with the software. For one, when let's power that down. Power that down and just reset this. So for one, you saw that I had named the reader. I called it Warehouse 1. I also named the antenna Stockroom 100. So with those settings there, you're getting kind of location information with every tag that's being scanned. I also turned on the tag settings to show you how you can control when and how tags are reported to the database. Now this string here for what happened is also configurable as well. So you saw that it was new tag visible and then tag no longer visible, but this could be something else that you need. It could be maybe a code that matches your database, so one, or it could be something a little bit more descriptive for maybe what we were just trying to do. It could be, tag at workstation. So we could do something like that, or tag no longer at workstation, work complete. So we're capturing sort of a description of what's happening with that tag as opposed to maybe the defaults that are reported to the database. You can also set what are called custom events. Now I talked about items at a workstation, as well as just scanning tags at a location and appending to the database. Custom events also allows you to define custom things that happen based on multiple events of the tag. So what this is useful for is like a check-in, check-out scenario, or something where you want to determine direction of a tag. So custom events allows you to report to the database a tag event only after a certain sequence of things happen. So this could be something like going from antenna 1 to antenna 2. Now imagine in your setup, you have an antenna 1 on the inside of a portal and an antenna 2 on the outside of a portal. You can set up a custom event that says, only tell me about a tag if it goes past 1, then past antenna 2. And then that'll be reported to your database as, say, a check-in. And now you can also set another custom event for the reverse. If it goes past antenna 2 to antenna 1, you can have it report to the database as the opposite. It's being checked in or out, based on the flow of that. So you can control, you have a lot of control over how tags are being reported to your database here, based on the events that are happening with the tag out in the environment. Just to go back to some of the other settings here, one is this main kind of first tab here for scanning is the scan mode. I've been doing this in a continuous mode. Very commonly, you can set up continuous mode because you maybe always want to be scanning for tags. However, there are certain cases where you might want to do a timed scan. So maybe you're doing a stock check of a little stock room. You can have the radio turn on, the RFID reader radio turn on for, say, 10 seconds once every day to scan all of the items at a location. And in that case, the reader's only powering up for a certain limited amount of time and scanning for tags. You can also set up a GPI trigger, general purpose input trigger. Now, most readers have input-output ports built into them, which allow you to do things like hook up sensors, so a motion sensor, a light sensor, something like that, in order to, say, trip a read, start reading. And there's also outputs that allow you to do things like power up buzzers or power up lights based on activity of the readers. To trip a read, you can turn on GPI trigger, general purpose input trigger. You can add what port it's hooked up to. So again, there's usually multiple ports, but if you wire up, say, a motion sensor to port 1, you can say that it's a motion detected, and then you can turn the reader on for some length of time. So this is in seconds. So if I wanted to start scanning for, say, 15 seconds, basically now, rather than when I hit start on that start-stop form and it powers the reader up, it basically puts the reader in a mode where their GPI motion sensor that you have hooked up to port 1 needs to trip, and in that case, it'll start scanning tags for 10 seconds. Oh, I'm sorry, 15 seconds. Now that's useful if you only want to power up the reader based on, say, actual physical activity through, say, a portal or something like that. Maybe there's not always activity at the location you're scanning for tags, and you want to control that through some type of motion sensor or something like that. So these are the different settings for controlling how and when the reader is scanning for tags. We talked about the antenna tab here. This is where you're configuring the different antennas that you have hooked up to the reader. So again, most readers have multiple ports for antennas, and you can name each one of the antennas that you hook up to the reader so that that information is captured with every tag that's posted to the database. You can also set the power level of the antenna. This is important for testing RFID. It's very, very important for setting up the reader in a way that's very useful for your installation. Now, the higher this level, the further the antenna reads, the further read range you get. Now, you may not want a maximum read range in all cases. You may want to try to limit the read range of an antenna based on, say, you just want to read within the portal. So like back to the PowerPoint, you had that guy walking through the portal. You may not want those at full power. You may want to dial them back if you're still getting good scanning performance of the tags, because you don't want to read everything maybe in the room that's outside of the area of that portal. So you can reduce the power level of the antennas here by changing this value, which is in dBm, for each one of the antennas. It's generally on one of these readers, if you put this to the lowest power, it almost turns the antenna into like a contact scan, or like almost an NFC type scan, where you have to take the tag and put it and touch it to the antenna in order for it to be read. And if it's only more than a couple inches away, it won't read that tag. So that's usually on most readers, the lowest power level will cause that. It'll dials the power down so much that it's in a very explicit action where you need to push the tag up to the antenna in order to get that scan. So similar to maybe if you've seen like an HF reader for door access, you have to put your badge up to the reader. It can dial a UHF reader down, which typically has longer range, to that almost contact type scan. So this is where you configure those tag settings. We've got into most of the tag settings here. The rest of it I won't go into too much detail for today's webinar. One thing maybe to note for our users, this read all memory banks during scan. If you want to scan the user memory bank on the tag, which is kind of an additional memory bank that you have available on the tag itself, you would want to turn this on here. And usually people will program kind of different stuff, encode different data to that memory bank. Maybe if it's an item that needs to be inspected, you can encode the last inspection date to that tag. And then if you have ClearStream running with that option turned on there, you can, along with scanning the identifier for the tag, you can capture the last inspection date of that item that tag is affixed to. So you can capture that into your database. Custom fields here, this I won't go into too much detail, but this allows you to add custom fields to the reader. So back here in the field mappings area, you saw that there's the EPC memory bank, the tag ID, and so on, a date timestamp. These are the static fields that are captured with every tag that's read by a fixed RFID reader. You can also add custom fields, which would then allow you to map them in your field mappings area. This is useful if you need to capture some type of static value along with all of your tag data. So you not only do you need to capture the EPC or that tag, that ID of the tag, you also need to capture something that's relevant to your database. You can add a static value here as a custom field. You can also configure this value to come from the, say, user memory bank on the tag. So a lot of people will use this for, to go back to that user memory bank. You could have multiple values encoded to the user memory bank. And let's just imagine you had multiple values separated by a semicolon in that memory bank. So you have part number and serial number. You can, through these custom fields, add a part number custom field and a serial number custom field and parse the data that's supplied to those fields out of the user memory bank. So what's useful for that is if you have your database side has this part number and serial number field, you can populate that based on the tag that's scanned. So it's not just values like this EPC or the antenna name. You're actually pulling out the part number and serial number from the memory bank of the tag and populating your database with that information. So that's what this custom field is useful to set up for in ClearStream. GPO, or general purpose output. This is where you power up the ports, the output ports on the reader. So this can be used for things like security checks. If a tag that's going through a portal is not supposed to go through there, you can go ahead and power that up using ClearStream. You can add a GPO event. You can say, why do I want to power up the event based on maybe a tag read? Let's say you wanted to, sound a horn every time a tag is read. You can say alert type is tag read. I can then set the port state to true, which means turn it on. You can define how long you want that port to be powered on. So say 5 seconds, and the condition of why it goes on, which is generally 1. This is based on whether or not it's successfully posted to the database. But now you're saying power up port 1 for 5 seconds every time a tag is read. So if you had a buzzer hooked up to it, it'd start buzzing. If you had a light, it would start, it would turn the light on or flicker depending on how fast you have that duration set, but you can configure that. You can also configure it so that, again, if you had a list of tags that weren't allowed to go out through a portal, you can power up a buzzer then so that there's a kind of a security sound when a tag goes through a portal that's not supposed to. Lastly, there's device settings here. This is specific to each manufacturer. Generally, a restart reader is available here. If you need to restart the reader for any reason, you can have access to that. But those are kind of all the settings you have for configuring each one of the readers, really controlling how and when readers are scanning for tags, and also how and when the readers are reporting those tags to the database. So those are all the settings there you can kind of customize to what you need. Back in the main area here for where you're configuring a reader, you can filter data. You can say, all right, I only want to send tags that maybe start with some prefix that are, your specific RFID tags. You can filter that data before it gets to the destination. So say you don't want to scan tags that don't happen to be the tags you are tracking. Maybe some item has a tag on it that you don't want to capture. You can set up filtering on the source side. On the options for the destination, by default, you append tags to the destination, but there's other options here for updating data, overwriting data, and deleting data on the destination. So it's controlling how the records are posted to your database table or Excel spreadsheet or whatever you have configured. So I think that's a little bit of everything I wanted to show you guys for getting started with. I hope this all kind of makes sense that you can get up and running quickly with ClearStream and fixed RFID. So if I can, I will jump back out of the live demo here. I'm going to bring the PowerPoint back up and swap these settings. One thing before we get to question and answer period, we do have ClearStream RFID kits available. There are other kits here other than this is labeled as Motorola and different Motorola Zebra options. So I'll update this slide actually after the webinar. But reach out to us for demo kind of equipment or your sales rep or any reseller that you purchase any of PTS's software through. We have a limited number of these available, so if you wanted to trial with actual fixed RFID equipment, you can do that. The equipment comes in a ClearStream box that includes 2 antennas, sample tags, an assortment of tags to try to test the tags for your environment, software, and all the hardware you need to get up and running. Here's our contact information. If you do have any questions after the webinar today, reach out to us here. We'd be glad to get you all of the information you need. As always, we do encourage you guys to download the software from ClearStreamRFID.com and go ahead and trial everything that we showed you here today. Again, there's no restrictions in the trial other than the 30-day limit. As long as there's no other questions, I do appreciate everyone hopping on the webinar today. I look forward to seeing you guys on future webinars. Also, I'd just like to mention actually before I go, the contact information here, not only for questions, if you guys do have any feedback on the webinars, how we're doing, what type of content you'd like to see, anything really along those lines, if you want to reach out to us and just let us know. We'd like to kind of tailor webinars to what you guys need to know, want to see. Any feedback you'd like to give us along those lines would be great. Again, I appreciate everybody hopping on the webinar today. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again in a future webinar. All right, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.